So the reasons are the answers to my question, why do buildings collapse? Well, there's no wood left, so we're using concrete frame, and people don't understand how to assemble these things. So this requires education. The materials are weak because many people are poor, and I'm going to talk about corruption now. This is something that's built into us. We all have a little bit of corruption inside us, but we're good people, so we suppress it. But if you're a bad person, you can make money if you're corrupt. And this is an example which Gambaritis and I put together, which I think is very interesting. I'll dwell on it a bit. This is the corruption index from Transparency International. You are not corrupt if you have a score of 10. You are very corrupt if you have a score of 0. How is it measured? Well, businessmen are asked, will you ask for a bribe in order to get ahead of the line of the taxis, or if you wanted. I won't go into the details. You know what they're like. It's very difficult to quantify corruption. But this is a number that's on the web. And here is the income for a different country. So here are all the countries in the world, and you're looking for Mexico, right? Yes, it's there. Look, okay. What it means is the mean income is so-so. It's sort of in the middle, and it means that you are slightly corrupt. Slightly corrupt. No, but don't take this to heart. It's not you. It's the businessmen. It's the people that are not in this room. You are all good people. And I want to leave in one piece. But now, because this is, you can see there's a correlation, right? So you can do the mathematics. There is the correlation. This is the regression coefficient, and this is one standard deviation below, and two standard deviations below. Okay? And what you can say is that if you have a certain income and you're above the line, then you're better than you might otherwise be. If you're below the line, you're not so good. Your expectations are lower. I'm afraid Mexico is slightly below the line, but it doesn't matter. The important thing is this is an expectation index in this direction. It means if you have a certain income and you are above the line, then there is some mechanism in your society that's preventing you from being corrupt, which is a good thing. Because if you now plot the expectation index versus your corruption index, or your income, and look at the number of people dead from earthquakes, it turns out that most of the earthquakes that kill people occur in those countries that are below the line and don't have a high income. This is a mixture of poverty, ignorance, and corruption. It's not only corruption. It's very difficult to distinguish the two. But I think this is incredibly striking. It means that the most corrupt countries in the world are in fact doing something with their buildings that they shouldn't. So what actually happens is this is the most lucrative way of making money in the world. There is more money going into building buildings and roads and dams and city halls and so on than into the armaments industry. So if you're a bad guy, you want to be in this. You want some kind of this. In order to get contracts, you just pay out money. I'm not saying it happens here. No. I'm just saying, in general, if you're a bad guy, you can get permits to do things that most people can't. And you can prevent inspection of buildings. You can say, okay, we're going to be pouring concrete tomorrow. I would like to take you out of my boat. Okay, there are ways to prevent building codes from being implemented simply by circumventing inspection. And then there's the word cover-up. Cover-up is used in politics, but it comes from the building industry. If you want to put a building up cheaply, you put up the building and quickly paint it. Nobody can see beneath the paint. So what I would like to point out is that corruption gets in between earthquake engineering and your house. You probably don't know anything about your house, how it was put up. It was put up by you, yes, but how many people build their own houses these days? You live in a house that was put up by somebody else, and in between the engineer who designed it and the person that constructed it and you, something may have been removed. And I believe that may be why buildings go up and fall down in earthquakes. Now, that is covert corruption. It is corruption that happens and nobody knows it's going on. I'm going to give you an example of overt corruption. This is where the government actually does everything they can to demonstrate that they are corrupt. Here's an example from India. This is the Terry Dam, and the hazard analysis for this dam asked the question, is it safe to build the dam? And if they got a seismologist to answer yes, then they would build the dam. But if they got the answer no, you ask another seismologist. And if you find that you keep getting a no, you just keep asking that question until you find someone who will say yes. We know that happens. This is not a joke. This actually happened, and it happens all the time. So I'm asking the question, why are people dying from earthquakes? And here is a partial answer. This is the infrastructure of seismology. We have paleoseismology, we study historical earthquakes, the whole edifice of what we do in seismology. We have geodesy, we understand plate motions, we understand the vulnerability of structures. All this stuff goes into seismic hazards. We feel very proud of this mechanism. And then we put in site-specific things about the structures and the ground, put in some statistics, we come out with some seismic risk calculations. They go into earthquake engineering, and engineers build skyscrapers, city halls, apartment blocks, schools, hospitals, fire stations, bridges, pipelines, dams. These are major investments of society. Now, what does the earthquake think about this? This is what we do about earthquakes. This is what the earthquake thinks about us. It doesn't worry about all these things because they're safe. It goes for the 1 billion dwelling units that engineers have not had any control in construction. People who die from earthquakes are not benefiting from any of this because we're not talking to the right people. That's not our fault, it's the way we work. So the loop needs to be closed somehow. So what needs fixing? The microphone. Okay, engineers are largely directed at civic structures, and that's good because we have codes and guidelines. I pointed out that corruption can get between the code and the dwelling units that people live in. And I pointed out that we are more or less isolated from our customers, if you think of saving people's lives as customers. There's also a possibility that we are afraid of seismology. Seismologists do not want to talk about worst-case scenarios, with a couple of exceptions, and Cinna is one of those exceptions. He has never been afraid to speak his mind about things. Thank you. We have several examples of where we've gone wrong because of that. The Tohoku earthquake was not supposed to be a 9.1 earthquake. The engineering, in fact, survived 9.1, which was great. It's a fabulous success, apart from one obvious failure. The Kashmir earthquake, we all knew there was going to be an earthquake there, but we didn't talk to the right people at the right time. The Indonesian earthquake, we knew you could have magnitude 8 earthquakes, we knew you could have tsunamis, but no one in his right mind would say, you're going to have a magnitude 9 earthquake and it's going to produce a tsunami. Because even though we knew it was possible, and obviously it did happen, we never go for the worst case M max, because we look foolish, we're crying wolf. Well, this doesn't help people, I'm afraid, and perhaps we should. I'm going to give you an example of what happened to me when I decided to follow Cinna's example and speak out about a nuclear power plant in India that's being built. It's quite close to 2 magnitude 6 earthquakes. And I and my colleague, Bino Gore, wrote an article saying, well, you've had 2 magnitude 6s here, why can't you have one there, right next to the nuclear power plant? Okay. Well, this was not liked by the Indian government, and various things happened. And again, this is a measure of political corruption that it can happen. 2 attacks were made, an overt attack where the science was criticized. You destroy the credibility of science in various ways. You discredit the evidence, or you seek alternative opinions. These are well-known tools for people who want to build things. They have the money to do so. And in fact, it went further than that. I'm not being allowed back in India. Okay, it's really rather astonishing. But I'm very proud of this because I followed Cinna's example, and I think more of us should do so. We really have to speak out when we know that there are problems. We must not be intimidated by the people with money. So thank you, Cinna. Thank you for 65 years of exemplary activities in seismology. And I'd like to thank you.